Right. The time being 6 o'clock, I'd like to call this Board of Health meeting to order. All members are present except for Kevin Whalen and our health agent, Chris Schultz. Let everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm present.
You are present. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time, I'd like to turn it over to Chris to give announcements from the Health Department.
First announcement, I just wanted to mention, I was just informed this weekend that one of our longtime compost site volunteers, Walter, or better known as Rick, and I'm going to mispronounce his last name, Breivogel, passed away. Rick was a volunteer down at the compost site for many years. He wasn't able to work this year because of a foot injury, but he did just pass away. So I want to keep him and his family in our thoughts. Okay, so in case people haven't heard, the CDC has updated its guidelines for COVID exposures, and those were just adopted by Department of Public Health in Massachusetts today. So the current guidance, which is available on mass.gov, is if you were exposed to COVID-19, regardless of your vaccination status, the recommendation that is instead of quarantining, you wear a high-quality mask for 10 days and get tested 5 full days after your last exposure. If you have COVID-19, regardless of your vaccination status, you should isolate from others for 5 days. If after 5 days you are fever-free for 24 hours without the use of medication and your symptoms are improving, or you never had symptoms, you should test on day 6. If you are negative, you may end isolation, but should continue masking around the public and others. If you test positive, you should continue to isolate. They are asking that individuals with moderate illness or severe illness or with a weakened immune system should isolate through 10 days and consult your doctor before ending isolation. The guidance for early childhood in K through 12, that's available online, and our school committee will address that. And if anybody has any further questions, you can either check mass.gov or give the health department a call. We're happy to answer any questions. As far as Abington and COVID, as of today, we have 25 active cases with the usual caveat that that's proctored PCR tests. That doesn't include anybody who's home testing. Our positivity rate remains at 9.05%. And part of that, why it's so high, is attributed to its sick people that are testing. So that's all I have for announcements.
Thank you, Chris. All right, so moving on to our next agenda item. Actually, is there anybody have any questions? Chris? No? All right, so moving on to our next agenda item is the continued discussion on the certification of occupancy regulation. I know we had a few questions for the health department, so I want to give Chris an opportunity to maybe provide us some answers if he has any from what we left off at last time before we continue with our discussion.
Okay, so one of the questions that was brought up at the last meeting was how many rental units we have in Abington. So I checked with the assessor's office, and interestingly enough, that is not something that the town is keeping a hard record of. According to the assessor's office, we have 180 properties that are considered two-family units. Those are both owner-occupied and rental, straight rental units. We have 84 three-family units, and we have 89 apartment buildings that are 4 or more units. And then it gets a little murkier because there's also condos that are subletted. You have mixed-use properties where it could be a residential rental unit, and some places have more than one building on a lot. So it's hard to get a fast number, but that's about what we have for at least buildings. So I guess one of the things that part of the process of developing this would be is figuring out a way to account for all of our rental units in town. So that's all I have for numbers at the moment.
Thank you, Chris. So we can open it up more for discussion. I know one of the things that was mentioned in the guide is recommendation, speaking to not being able to account for necessarily all types of units, is a phased rollout of certain types of housing, getting this regulation enforced there first before we grow it larger and larger, which gives us time to actually figure out what units need to fall into that category. So that was one of the suggestions as well. I want to open it up if there's any discussion we want to continue on with that. I think the main thing is determining, if we are going to move forward with something like this, what kind of regulation we're going to adopt, how the frequency, what are the triggers for actually doing this inspection. Anybody over it?
I think it's worth continuing to discuss. I don't really have any other questions at this point in time. I just agree that we kind of have to keep mulling it over in order to move on to implementation.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I still think it's a really good idea. I looked at the brochures for Chelsea and Salem. Both of those were slightly different, but they seem pretty reasonable. But I also agree that figuring out exactly how many rental units we have would probably, I would assume there's a way to do it. There's probably, if you're going to have one legally, I'm sure there's tax things you have to do or some way to declare that in order to really do it. So that could be one way of figuring it out. But otherwise, just from those two brochures, I like the way that they announced it, marketed it, whatever you want to call it. It was pretty clear, so.
Which kind of property do we think we want to have be the rollout?
I say since we know how many 2, 3, and 4 family units we have, that could be something that we start with because that's a hard number we can start with.
Okay.
And then from there, as we figure out how we're going to handle those things, we can move it on from there. It's just, phased rollout so we can actually account for those things. I know that it's concerning to me that we don't actually have a hard number of those things. So I think this would be a good opportunity for us to start to figure that out, because how can we account and make sure that residents actually have housing that meets the minimum standards if we don't know where people are living? That's concerning to me.
So I fully understand the whole thought process that we don't want people living in substandard housing. But still, I feel like if we require an inspection, great idea, but you're not going to have your substandard landlords call you up and say, hey, I want an inspection of my substandard apartment. So I can't see a way to target the landlords that we're actually trying to target.
I think the tenant would have to file a complaint first.
Uh-huh.
I hear what you're saying. Like, the
Uh-huh.
people who are troublemakers aren't going to be like, hey, I'm a troublemaker, my plumbing doesn't work in my apartment and I'm not
Yeah.
going to fix it. But like, if a tenant complained and then it came to our attention, then, they're on our radar.
Uh-huh.
And then anytime they were transitioning to new tenant, I guess we would, know that they would be there.
So
Because we'd know the length of the rent, presumably, by working with the tenant.
Even so, the former tenant would need to call and say, hey, I'm moving out, you need to inspect it again.
Well, I think they would
I'm
call
just
and
not-
complain, and then
Uh-huh.
hopefully they'd be forthcoming with the information about their former tenancy. And then, if they weren't planning on staying there because it was not meeting certain criteria,
Uh-huh.
then we would have to either find the person who did it,
Uh-huh.
or, say, hey, you can't rent this again until, and that way no one's getting snookered.
Don't you think that those tenants living in the substandard housing already have the option of calling to complain? I'm just not,
Maybe
so.
Well, if there's no
How?
regulation in place, there's really nothing to enforce.
Yeah.
So-
I think with any regulation, you're gonna have people that, any law, you're gonna have people that aren't going to follow it. The question is, when that situation arises, is there recourse for either the town or the tenant, no matter what?
Mhm.
I mean, you can
There
have,
is,
you can have a
yes.
seatbelt law.
Yeah.
It doesn't guarantee everyone's gonna wear a seatbelt, but if they
Right.
get pulled over not wearing it, then there's
Uh-huh.
something there.
So there is a state sanitary code.
Right.
So I thought that, I did look over everything that we received in the email, but I thought that Chris would write a policy and present it to us. So I didn't have much of a chance once I found out, but I did, if you just take one and pass it down. I did look over the Weymouth policy that you gave us, regulation requiring certification of rental property. And in that, and what I just gave you is Weymouth on the top. It's actually, you told us before that you got this from Weymouth and adapted it for Abington. So I took a look at that, and there were a couple things that, in the first paragraph, Article 1, I couldn't find that. So you'll see on the next page of what I just gave you that I took that out. I rewrote this Weymouth policy. And I'm thinking this is just a starting place for discussion purposes. If somebody knows what Article 1 is, we could put that back in. And in the second paragraph, Article 2, I don't know what that is either. So it says in the second paragraph, whenever a rented dwelling unit, apartment, or tenement other than a hotel, motel, or rooming house is vacated by occupant thereof within 10 days before the expiration date of the anticipated occupancy, it must be certified by the Board of Health. So 10 days before the current tenant moves out, it has to be inspected. I just thought that there might be tenants that wouldn't want that, and that's kind of restrictive. So I took that.
Change the wording there. That doesn't seem that hard. Like, we could make it say, you know, right after they move out, or.
Yeah, so I rewrote the whole thing.
So if I'm not mistaken, this front page, when we brought this forward, this is really a summary and not the actual regulation. And it was supposed to be a summary that Weymouth gives out about it. So we would have to go through and make a regulation that Weymouth didn't have available. This was a good summary to start and say, this is what something like this could look like.
Is there something else that goes with this Weymouth page? I didn't.
No, nobody received that, but there are
Okay.
other towns that have regulations, so in order for us to draft,
Okay.
we need to draft something up.
So
And that falls on us.
that would be the next couple of pages that I just gave you.
But we're not ready for this yet.
We're not ready for this?
No, because
No?
we're still gonna get a hard number of rental properties and then figure out where we're gonna implement. So I think the wordage on however we're gonna format it will depend on that information, right? Unless we're gonna keep it all super vague, and then it wouldn't matter.
Super vague.
I mean, not so finite, like with what kind of property. Do you know what I'm saying?
No,
No, so
I'll
like,
follow you.
I wouldn't be ready to draft something
No?
until we knew more about, I feel like we're just getting our feet under us.
I think the proper course of action to move forward is
Okay.
to, how do we, if we are gonna do this, what kind of turnover do we wanna have? Let's take another community,
Right.
plug Abington in from that, and see if that wording works, and if not, we can make changes as applicable, because that way, for us to sit here and know all the legal jargon that needs to go into it, I think
Right.
is a lot.
That's
But if
what
we
I
use
mean.
another community that has something in place, and we plug in Abington and we start there, we can start to kind of craft what we want out of what is already enforced in another.
So you don't want to consider even what I wrote? I mean, I couldn't
Well, no.
pass this out in advance because it would have been outside of an open meeting and we didn't
Right.
have anything else, so.
Well, and I'm not saying we can't consider this as part of it, I think that we need to have an actual, section 1, this is our authority, section 2 definition, we don't have that yet, and we haven't really even determined what kind of, this regulation we want to have. Do we want to have 3 to 5 years? Do we want to have,
Right.
What's the frequency of those things?
So I thought that, like, I could present my proposal and we could discuss and go from there.
Oh,
Move it.
If you'd rather not, that's fine.
No, we absolutely can. I just think that we haven't gotten to the point where we determined if this is what we're doing yet.
Okay.
So we may be jumping a step or two ahead, and this could be,
We'll
if
keep
we,
it.
yeah, if we determine tonight, hey, this is what we're gonna do, let's take a community that already has that regulation in place, plug in Abington, and try and put 2 and 2 together, so that way it's,
So that actually is what I did based on this Weymouth apparently cover page that we got. I rewrote it from that into what I just gave you. So, okay, if you'd rather table it, that's fine.
I want to keep it and I want to look at it and then think about where we're going and then come back all together with a fine tooth comb and then, you know,
Okay.
tweak as needed.
Because
Like, 'cause
if we can nail down tonight just which path we want to go with it, then what we'll do is we'll take a community, we'll plug Abington in, and then we'll send that out to the board to review without discussing it, and we can discuss it in the meeting.
Who would do that?
That'd be something, I'll work with Chris, and between the two of us, we'll get that out to the
Okay.
board within the next
So-
week.
I did that myself because we had nothing else to look at tonight I kind of rewrote the Weymouth presentation, so
Well,
You
I
don't
think
care
it's
to look
really
at mine?
good to be included into it. It just, we don't have it broken down how, we went to our MOA training, they talked about section 1, this is our authority, section 2, these are the definitions, section 3. This wasn't broken down this way, and our goal was to say, this is what this could look like, here's a cover sheet for it, kind of briefly explains what's going on, and we could send this out with the right information once we have our regulation put into place, and this could be something that we use to inform residents. So if we can do that, I think it'll be a little cleaner moving forward, and we will have less questions.
Cleaner?
Yeah, this isn't necessarily clean.
no.
This is a good summary, and I think you explained that exactly right. You need to rewrite it to make it work, because the sanitary
for
code's
us.
wrong. And there are a lot of improper references in here. So I think if we do it right, we grab the right code, we can make this a lot better for the next time than this example from Wayne.
So between you and Chris, you'll write a policy of some sort and send it out to us?
We're just gonna take another community that has whichever one we wanna choose tonight to look at, or we could take each one even, each
Just
different
not
type.
Weymouth?
Yeah, no, because Weymouth
We're
doesn't
gonna
have.
disregard that now?
Unless we call Weymouth's health agent and get a copy of the regulation. But there, in that guide, there's an example of like Salem, Wilbraham, Brockton, there are a whole bunch of communities that have the regulations. We'll take those, we'll punch Abington into the 3 different kinds. I think that's a better way of doing it. And that way we can look and see how they're worded and move on from there.
Can we back up a couple of steps
Yes.
too? So I have never been a landlord, and so I'm not sure, like, obviously I've rented from places, but so for like, let's say these 400-ish that we have, like a very rough estimate there, of the 2-family, 3-family, and then apartment building units. So I think annually is probably too often, and I guess like everyone's, like how long they agree to rent the property is different too. So like, how will we manage that? Will we say every 5, or do you think that's too far apart? Every like,
These
because will we
questions we're
need to
gonna have
put that in here too, I'm assuming, or?
I think a big part of this, and I read through a lot of that guide, it's it's incumbent upon those landlords to ask us for an inspection. And if they don't do that, then they are breaking the law. And if we
Right.
find out they're breaking the law, they will be fined. We're not gonna get everybody to tell us that they're breaking the law.
Breaking the
Right.
law?
If they are, they are, and when we find out about it, they will be fined appropriately. I mean, it's a step in the right direction. Those landlords, they get that notification that this is our new regulation, we'll do the right thing.
Right.
But there are some that won't. It's with everything. People will break the law.
Is there, I haven't seen a law requiring inspections. I've seen the state sanitary code.
Well, I think that's
Could you-
what we're talking about.
That's-
Forward that to us as well.
That's what this would be.
Breaking the law by not having an inspection, though, I mean,
If
that's
we
not,
have a regulation placed, then they're violating the regulation.
so it's just a town bylaw.
Yes, it's a town bylaw. They're violating that bylaw. But, we're using the state sanitary code to do that inspection.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's how that comes into play for this. So they
Okay.
could reportedly make a complaint now under the state sanitary code, but this is to try and be preemptive. And again, maybe we will run into a landlord that has a substandard thing and doesn't know it. I mean, it's possible, probably not likely. But I think that's what we're trying to catch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay.
So
looking forward to that.
if the board is comfortable, we will take the examples of the 3 different kinds that were listed in the presentation from one of the communities. So, for example, we have a regular rental unit with inspections required regardless of occupancy status. We have a pre-rental inspection required upon changes in tenancy, occupancy, or property ownership. And then there's inspection certificate from the Board of Health required prior to each new tenancy. Those are the 3 types. So they give a list of communities. We'll take one of each of these communities, punch Abington in, and have an example to look at and start to see how that wording works and determine, you know, we can start to marry some of the stuff that Lisa wrote up for us and make it flow into an actual
So
regulation.
you and Chris will do that, and
Yes,
we
we'll-
can all expect something
Yeah,
in the form of an email that we can look at
by next Monday, we'll have that done for you.
Monday? Okay.
I mean, I would bet, and just from looking at some of the examples from the other towns around, that there is not so much super unique to Abington that it would have to be rewritten from scratch. I
Exactly.
think it's all pretty average
Right.
type of stuff that should be normalized, so.
I think the big thing too, you know, when we're looking at these, the regulation focuses on exactly what the expectation are and what the penalties are for violations, not so much the process administratively. We're here to support the health department with that, but I think if we start to dwell on it too much, I don't wanna say something's gonna work for the health department when it, you know, they may have a better idea doing it. So I think let's focus on trying to figure out exactly what we wanna do, what the expectation is, and what the fines are gonna be, and then we can start to work on that administration.
So you and Chris will do that and
Yes,
send
that-
us something?
This will be the regulation as it's written in other communities with Abington punched in, will be sent to you guys by Monday. We won't talk about it over email, we will just come back on our next meeting and talk about it then, which is, I think, the second week of September.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, so that's what we want to do, that's what we will do. Any other discussion on this?
No.
Okay.
Oh,
Yes.
not totally related to this, but I did have a question. Who updates the Board of Health page on the website? Is that Tony?
Yeah, usually, yes.
She does the Board of Health page
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah.
Why? You're just curious?
Wondering, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you found something wrong or something
Yeah.
that needed
No,
to be
and-
edited.
just needs
And
to
actually
be
on that, and
updated.
I know there's questions about when the notices get on the website and stuff. I send the notice to the health department and they do get posted on the front door, so that posting requirement is met. We try to get it on the website as soon as we can, but again, we're working with a third person there, so sometimes things, you know, emails don't get to where they're supposed to be in time, and that runs into it. Just feel free to reach out to one of us via email, we can send you a copy of it. We're more than happy to do that for you. I know I am, so don't hesitate to reach
Is-
out. Usually
is-
by 1 o'clock Thursday we have it, so the meeting Wednesday, Thursday before the meeting.
Is that how every department handles things, that Tony does it?
Most of them. I want to say Cassie, who works in the front, has access to the website to update certain things.
But typically, it's the
It's
one
usually, we
person.
get, yeah, we usually send it to Tony.
All right, so our next agenda item here is a discussion of recycling tips and tricks. This is really just an opportunity for us to talk about just some ways we can improve our recycling and trash. It's something we get questions about from time to time, so I think it would be a good opportunity for us to chat about it. The thing that we want to bring up for this meeting is that construction waste does not belong in your trash bin. I will turn that over to Chris to talk a little bit more about.
Yep, and that is in the Abington Town trash regulations. So just for example, today I got a text from our trash driver, somebody had filled up their entire trash tote with concrete. I sent out a notice to them, so if you go by the town's regulations for trash, the first time it's a written notice, the second time, your trash does not get picked up, and after that, we start fining. We're not looking to fine people. I'd rather educate or that. So I sent out a letter to the homeowner today explaining it with a copy of the regulations and highlighted what the problem are. But if you have a chance to read over the town's trash regulations, the trash company does not have to pick up your trash if you have bags outside of your trash barrel or if your lid's not fully closed. I almost daily get complaints from people about squirrels getting into their trash and eating their trash lids. It is because the trash is overflowing. If your lid is not fully closed, animals can smell the trash in it and they get into it. Every single lid, without exception, that I have gone out to replace because it's been chewed on by an animal, typically their trash is overflowing and it's not sealed, so. Also, if you're having problems with squirrels, because apparently some of them just develop a taste for plastic, hot peppers. Hot pepper powder, sprayed or rubbed on your bin or around the bin will keep them away. And it doesn't hurt the birds, so. I know a lot of times when people are moving, they have excess cardboard. That seems to be a problem. I was out driving today and I saw a number of houses that had just piles and piles of cardboard next to the recycling. Again, we have an automated service. Our drivers do not get out of the vehicles. They have arms to lift it. If you put something outside your barrel, it's not getting picked up. And the drivers take note of what's out there. So sometimes we get people that have excess trash. Their regular trash will get picked up, and then they'll call the health department and say the driver didn't pick up their trash while they put the excess in the bin. We know. We get photographs, we get texts. Our drivers are really good about letting us know what's going out on the street. So I'm just asking people to be cooperative and, you know, try to do their best. I know sometimes we have excess trash. It's a pain to get rid of. We're not currently able to take cardboard at a bulk level at the town, but that's something we're looking at doing. We're exploring the possibility of getting a baler so that we can take cardboard, which I know a lot of people have asked about, but we're just not currently set up or budgeted to do that, so.
Thank you, Chris.
So what would somebody do with their extra trash and concrete?
Concrete or any construction debris, you have to hire a dumpster or, you know, a private trash company. Excess, the official wordage from our contractor is to talk to your neighbors about putting it in their bins, or hold on to it. Part of the thing is, I think there's a misunderstanding, and I've seen this with some new residents. People presume that as a resident in a town, you have a right to have your trash taken away. You don't. You have to pay for it. We pay through our property taxes. A lot of communities have pay-as-you-throw, but if you have excess, or you are doing construction on your house that has debris, or you have textiles and mattresses which are going to be banned from landfills coming November 1st, it's your responsibility to take care of that on your own. So whether it's hiring a dumpster or getting a service that does cleanouts to come and get it, that's fine. But the town, the contract and the regulations for this town is you have a 64-gallon tote for trash and recycling, and that's all you get once a week. You can purchase an additional trash if you would like. We would prefer that people don't do that. Additional trash. There's no additional recycling. You can purchase an additional trash can for $150 up front, and then it's $75 a year. The cost of that will probably go up because we're paying more for that. It's, you know, the town's not profiting off of that. We're covering the cost of the extra tonnage. But if we sat down and crunched the numbers, it's probably more than $75 a barrel at this point. So that's kind of where we're at.
So what's going to happen to textiles? I know you have the dumpster out there, the bin out there, but, and mattresses.
So
starting in November, what will
they
people
have to
do
be
with those?
recycled. So I think, you know, as far as our residents, we currently have systems in place for that. So it would be donation bins for textiles. We take mattresses at the compost site for $20 and we will recycle them.
So that will continue after
Yeah,
November?
we'll continue that. We're actually, I'm not going to make any promises. So as far as mattresses go, the compost site is open every Saturday 9 to 2, but we will take mattresses during the week and on the off season if people call the health department and arrange a drop-off. So we do make that available.
They have to bring it to
Yeah.
the compost site?
Yeah, there are other companies that offer curbside, which we would love to do, but then it's probably, the cost is probably going to go up if we move to that model.
Oh, a totally different trash hauler?
Yeah. So right now, we have a company that's contracted through the state, through RDP grants. So that's why the cost is only $20, because that's our cost to remove these mattresses. If we went with the different vendor or change services, then the cost would probably go up to reflect that.
Just for the mattresses?
Just for the mattresses,
clarify.
yeah.
So
Checks.
what does somebody do that say they don't drive and they have a mattress to get rid of?
You find it
We're
from
gonna, yeah,
the
we're
truck.
gonna, we're gonna have to cross that bridge. Currently, and I realize when I say this, I'm contradicting myself. Currently, they can contract the trash hauler to remove them as trash. Come November 1st, I'm not exactly sure. That's something we'd have to look into. We might be able to arrange to pick it up for a slightly increased fee. I don't know. I don't currently get a lot of calls for that. Most people are able to find a way to get it down, but that's gonna be a challenge. I think what you're going to see statewide as this ban goes into place is that retailers are going to have to take on the responsibility of getting the product returned back to them. Because when we talk about mattresses or textiles going into landfills, as much as we don't want you personally throwing that stuff out, the amount that you as a consumer, as a resident throw out is nothing compared to what businesses and industry are. So this law is mostly affecting them. And one of the talks that I've heard in the trade is a lot of manufacturers and retailers will have to start having systems in place to take it back. Once it's out, like when you buy a new mattress, they take your old one, that sort of deal. So, but I'll look into curbside for mattresses, because we hadn't really, I'm not sure what we're gonna do with that.
Any other questions, discussion? So this is gonna be something we have every meeting, just so if you have something you want to chat about recycling wise, it's a good tip. Feel free to bring it up. I mean, it's, you know, any opportunity we get to chat about what residents can do better, and especially help where tonnage and things are increasing, it's a good opportunity, so.
Yeah, they've been doing it with car seats for a long time. That I know, and they always did like a promo, like you bring it back and then you can get like a certain amount off your new one. It would be cool if mattresses did that as well.
Yeah, I think industry-wide, with a lot of things, you're gonna start seeing that happen, hopefully.
Actually, I do have one question. So about the regional aspect of it, we kind of talked about it last time. Is that still a possibility? Is there anything we need to do to look into that? Because there might be things that towns around us recycle that we don't. Someone might be willing to drive 10 minutes
Yeah.
to do that, as opposed to just putting it directly in their trash because they're out of space in their recycling bin. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're looking into that. Like, we currently have, we belong to South Shore Recycling Co-op, and our household hazardous waste days are done. That's a shared between 10 communities. Actually, we haven't officially announced it because it's still being drafted, but we're going to be hosting one in September 10th here in Abington.
September 10th,
Yeah.
at the compost site?
It's going to be at the DPW barn.
And what is that, like anything with the plug?
No, it's just hazardous waste.
Hazardous waste.
Yep, oil, chemicals, things like that.
So hazardous chemicals?
Yep. And the information on what they accept is on the South Shore Recycling Co-op website. We'll have flyers out once all the other towns are finalized, because I think there's like 6 or 7 dates. We're just waiting for everybody else to confirm. So, yeah, regionalized, we're still looking into that.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do you want me to talk to the mic or?
I hear we have
I think it picks
microphones
you
out
up.
there now, so
Oh,
feel free
nice.
to
Okay.
state your name and address.
Helen
Though.
Delaney, 18 Washington Street. Are you going to do anything with a plug again? I have a bunch of stuff to donate.
I would love to, and I would take suggestions from anybody out there that might know someone who is willing to run that. The problem is we don't have a vendor.
You don't have what?
We don't have a vendor currently.
Oh.
So will we be happy to host it if we don't have anywhere to send them? I had heard talk that there was somebody in Abington that recycles electronics, but I didn't get any information on who or where.
A person?
Yeah. Is it somebody up near the ale house, but that's literally as much information as I got. And there's a lot of people up around the ale house, so. Yeah, if we could find somebody or a company, that'd be great, even if it was fee-based, but I don't think any of our local communities are doing one right now. Just
Okay. Moving on. Our next item is a discussion on board member training. It's just an opportunity to remind us. So we all need to complete the FEMA ICS training. I'm going to let Chris talk to us about why we're doing that. But if you haven't, just go online to FEMA's website. There is an opportunity to sign up for the courses there. They're all free. And it's ICS, is it just 100?
Just 100.
So you can talk about why we're.
So, when you good folks ran for the Board of Health, one of the things you may not have been aware of, and I know because this happened to me when I ran for the Board of Health, is that the Board of Health and the Health Department is responsible for emergency management planning in town. By our town's charter, the emergency management director is the police chief, but the auspice of emergency management is under the health department. So as a board member, you're required to have the ICS 100 training, and basically that's just so you have an understanding of how incident command works. If there was an emergency situation in Abington where ICS was activated, that would go into, those wheels start rolling without you, but you're gonna get a call. And you're gonna be asked to come down and play some role if you're available. So having the training just gives you a basic understanding of how that works. One of the reasons it's important for all of our board members to have that training is grants. There are grants that we get from both the state and the federal level for being properly prepared for these situations, and if that's one of the requirements. So if we're not all trained, there's money we lose out on. So.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
No, I already did it.
There's all sorts of awesome self-directed teaching on the MEMA and the FEMA website. If you ever wanted to learn about radiological events or,
Hope we won't have one of those.
Yeah.
whatever you can imagine. But the ICS 100 is what is the ask of the.
I think in January 2020, I ended up taking the continuity of operations for pandemic influenzas, and sure enough, 2 months later there was an influenza pandemic, not an influenza, trust me. So, anyways, next agenda item is to vote to approve the minutes of July 25th. Everybody have a chance to look at those? Yep. Any discussion?
Nope.
I vote to approve.
Yeah,
I'll second that.
Motion to approve from
Oh,
Katie.
thank you.
Second from Lisa. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying
Aye.
aye. Aye. Opposed? It is, well, unanimous. So those are approved. All right. And our last agenda item is correspondence. Does anybody have anything from the board they'd like to share? Anybody from the board? Chris?
I have some.
Chris has
I
stuff.
meant to put this into the update, but it's literally a correspondence, so this is more appropriate. We were notified today that Plymouth County Mosquito Control will be spraying tonight, so I'm just going to read the press release for you. Plymouth County Mosquito Control will be conducting a truck-based townwide mosquito spray on August 16th between 2 a.m. and sunrise in response to a West Nile virus positive mosquito sample. Pesticide applications are made via an ultra-low volume sprayer that is mounted on a pickup truck. Typically, spraying is done from the street and can travel up to 300 feet. The ULV sprayers dispense very fine aerosol droplets that stay in the air and kill adult mosquitoes on contact. Most droplets don't reach the ground, and there is no residual effect of the product. No special precautions are necessary during or after the spray. If your property has been registered as an exclusion from wide area spraying, it will not be sprayed. And if you have any additional questions or want information on the particulars of the spraying, you go to plymouthmosquito.org for information on the spraying. So this is being done townwide. Rockland's having the same thing done tonight. They also had a West Nile virus positive mosquito. So that's it.
Any questions or further correspondence or discussion?
No.
Hearing none, that is our agenda for the evening. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn from Katie,
Second that.
second from Clay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We are adjourned.